aloha. That's pretty good. Aloha. Excellent. So I was thinking about, I used to be a mailman, or we used to call it, I guess, a letter carrier for international and domestic packages. And I worked in actually Los Angeles, and specifically in Studio City, which is a very rich area, and a lot of the people I delivered to were actually in the industry, the movies. So I was the youngest carrier in LA history actually at the time, and I remember walking on all these amazing landscapes. I mean, these were like multi-million-dollar houses. And one day I realized that instead of walking on these landscapes, I could be designing and installing them. So shortly after that, I actually quit the post office, went back to junior college, and now I'm here talking to you. So if you have any questions when I'm talking, please let me know. My students say that I get kind of excited and I talk too fast, so just kind of wave and I'll slow down. All right, let's do it. So I run the Tropical Landscape and Human Interaction Lab. And basically, this is a multidisciplinary research lab. And it's really dedicated to studying the connection. That's a really important thing, the connection between plants, both indoor and outdoor, and then the associated human responses. So basically how plants affect people, then how can we use them properly within policy, within design. And this is really a combination of many different disciplines, such as horticulture, environmental psychology, sociology, psychology, and landscape architecture. And I get to do a lot of fun things throughout the state. I am the landscape specialist for the state of Hawaii, so anything related to landscape, excuse me, it's usually me. So I'd like to start with the key to success. I think we've talked about things, and Eric mentioned things this morning about his family starting Greenpoint Nurseries, and it really comes in many different forms. And we look at it, I think it's in the best form is education. And education can come from practical learn-by-doing experiences. And in addition to these kind of learn-by-doing hands-on stuff, it could be education from an apprenticeship or studying under someone as a mentorship. Next, education can be from simply reading a technical guide or trade publications or a newspaper. So kind of reading things to kind of understand and process knowledge. Next, education can be at conferences, workshops. Wait a minute, this is a conference, the workshop. So we're getting educated right now. And then lastly, education can be more formal, like K through 12, junior college, university. So education, we don't really think about it, but it comes in many, many different forms. I don't think one is better than the other. It just lays a different foundation for people to gain knowledge, to do what they hopefully love and improve things. So with that education, I think it's a part of this key to success. And with this, what I kind of think about is education again. That basis, the key to success, education lays a really big foundation. When I worked for the post office, I had a high school diploma, and I had a lot of knowledge to get me to work for the post office. But then, as I was looking around these landscapes, I thought, well, how do you get knowledge about landscaping? And then that's when I found horticulture programs and landscape programs to educate myself. So all forms of education, I think, are merely just foundation on which to build on. All education, I think, is just foundation to which to start and to build upon whatever your career is. And I think experience is the most beneficial thing, or your best friend. Because experience is really the true teacher that allows you to take whatever formal education you have to really apply it. Kind of, you can look at the theories, you can look at all the technical stuff, but then the how to make things work, how to make things go into action or production. So it doesn't really matter if things are formal, if things are informal or hands-on. I think this all matters, yeah? This formal, informal education. So with that, I think it's really about teaching. And what I found in the past 15 years at teaching at UH is that teaching is an art form, It's also a science, but in addition to being a father of a 9-year-old, you have to have patience. But beyond all this, I think you have to have a passion and a purpose to do things. And for me, it's to help the landscape, help people, and help the environment. So this notion of success really, I think, is based in teaching. And that's why I applaud all of you being teachers or associated with teaching is an amazing thing. And I truly love it. And I get to do both things. I get to play with plants, and I get to teach. So it's really super cool. So, oh yeah, teaching, plants research. We've got to get back to that. So is everyone ready? Okay, I want everyone take a big, deep breath. Okay, chew up the food, get everything going. But now we have to get serious. We have to put on our thinking caps. But we have to put on our green thinking caps because we're going to be talking about plants, yeah, and teaching. Okay, so everyone's got their green caps on, I see. Yes, okay, so we're ready. All right. Any questions? We're all on board so far. Yes? Yes? Okay, good. There's a lot of benefits to plants. There's some practical benefits, environmental benefits, sociological benefits, and some environmental benefits are really kind of common, but I think we kind of forget about these in our everyday lives. And it's replenishing oxygen. We just took a deep breath, and that's from all the plants outside that allowed us to do that. They prevent soil erosion outside. They help cooler neighborhoods outside. They help filter dust. There are so many different environmental qualities that plants afford us. It would go on and on and on. But I just want to kind of set a foundation for plants in an environmental aspect. Then things that I kind of focus on is kind of like the social aspect, as our fine young friend is doing here. And these come in also many different forms, such as improving property value, providing a sense of community, fostering a sense of well-being, and offering aesthetically pleasing environments. Imagine for a moment if there's no plants on the islands. All the trees were gone, all the shrubs were gone, all the ground covers were gone. How many would like that landscape? Not so much, right? It would be a horrible place to be without that aesthetic well-being of having plants or trees. So with this, there's physical, there's emotional, and there's preferences that we have for plants, either subconsciously or consciously. So take a moment and think about when you were a child, or maybe even yesterday, or when you go on vacation. Think about where you go on vacation, or when you're a child, where was your favorite place to go? Raise your hand if it had to do something with nature. Plants. How about trees? How many people climbed trees when they were kids or yesterday? Why did you climb trees? Why did you climb trees?
I felt powerful.
Ah. Powerful. Who else, Ray? Why did you climb trees?
Going along with my son, following him up the tree.
Okay, I know that one well. Did you climb trees when you were younger? Why?
It was fun. We enjoyed it.
The two questions when I ask that, or two answers, are empowerment and having fun. And more than often not, I have people that were bullied and they were getting away from the bullies. I do this all over the country. It's amazing that bullying thing always comes in. And trees were a savior. Pretty interesting. So with these preferences, what causes these? What causes us to have a physical reaction to a plant or vegetation, or emotional, or preferences? So Judy said that since she was going to give me lunch, I had to kind of answer this for you. So you ready? Because that was a great lunch. Okay, here we go. What is this? Hibiscus. Do we know what species or what variety? It's red. It is red. Okay, I want everyone take a deep breath again. I want you to close your eyes. I just want you to relax. Don't worry about the stomach gurgling from the cupcakes. Just relax. Take a deep breath. And when I tell you to open your eyes, I want you to look directly at the screen, but not yet. We're going to take one more nice breath and just focus, stare at the screen. On a count of 3. 1, 2, 3. What just happened? Why were there sounds? Who said like oohs and ahs and oh, that's so cute? Raise your hand. How many said ooh, ee, ah? Raise your hand. Why? Why just looking at little pictures after this fantastic lunch, playing with plants, why did that affect you? Why did you say
Preference.
What's that? Preference. How many of you have held a snake or a spider or a lizard? How many have been bitten by a snake or a spider? How many have seen other people being bit by a snake or a spider? How many have seen a puppy? Touched a puppy? How many have seen a baby? How many have heard a baby? So we have some commonalities, but not everyone has actually been bit or touched or those real kind of like scary things, spiders, snakes, stuff like that. So what's going on? Biophilia. Everyone say biophilia. Biophilia. Do you know what biophilia is? How many have heard of it before? 2.3. Okay, great. So 2.3 have heard of biophilia. So biophilia actually means love of life or living systems. Biophilia actually means love of life or living systems. So we're living systems, right? And we kind of love life. So biophilia is actually a part of us. And biophilia was coined by E.O. Wilson, who's a Harvard researcher. Actually, he studies ants. He started studying ants. But then he started to get into this notion of biophilia. So let's look into this a little bit more clear. So he came up with this notion called the Biophilia Hypothesis. And what he says that this actually suggests that there's an instinctive bond between human beings and other living systems. So I notice everyone's typing on their computers, we have iPhones, we have all these things, technology, but in most indigenous cultures, they understand this. They're connected to the Aina, to the land, to everything around us. And sometimes we kind of get disconnected. So hopefully today I'm going to help you connect again so then you can help your students, friends, and families reconnect. So he goes on to say that this biophilia, unlike phobias, we just had phobias because we had spiders, snakes, kind of scary things as most people, not everyone, but most people. And he says that the connections that human beings subconsciously have, the connections that people subconsciously have, seek for the rest of life. We automatically look at these connections. We crave these connections. We seek them out. And he says that human preferences, it goes back to the other side, preferences. It says preferences for nature, while they're refined by our experiences or social interactions, he says, are hypothetically a product of biological knowledge. In fact, what he says that way back in time, that when we learn things like the spider, so if your tribe and you watch someone get bit by a spider, he died, everyone would be kind of freaked out. And then they would kind of discuss that between the tribe. And he's saying that over thousands and hundreds of thousands of generations, that social experience kind of became part of our DNA. So that's why no matter where I go in the world, I show those pictures, same reactions. People goes, ooh, ah, so cute, ew, ah. It's pretty crazy that we all have that innate thing, and that's what he's talking about, this biophilia, biophobia. In fact, he says that this attraction might be why, for most cultures around the world and most people, we have a connection with horticulture and plants. This notion of biophilia, this subconscious connection of other living things. Okay, any questions, thoughts, excitements? Any more cupcakes? There's still a lot there. Anyone? Okay, let's keep moving. So, I want to talk a little bit about some research that's been done around the world, and then talk about some stuff that I've done here in Hawaii about human responses to vegetation. There's so much, but they said I need to be done by 3 o'clock, so I'm just not going to talk about everything. So there's quicker reaction times, deeper concentration, improved air quality, improved mood. Plants can do so many things for us, and that's why we need to take care of them. So let's do some science. Are you ready? Okay, deep breath. Okay, here we go. Science, this is awesome. So, what do you see here? Go ahead, speak out loud. Just shoot it out. What do you see? Green, what else? Water, what else? Relax. How does it make you feel? So relaxed, calm, what else? How many would like to be in this scene right now and not just because I'm boring? What other qualities do you see about this picture? So water, calm, green, what else?
Probably warm.
Ooh, probably warm. Okay, so no snow days. Good, what else?
No people.
Oh, no people, interesting. Are people bad? Because we're people, right? We're all gelling. We're all good. Ooh, it's not crowded. So peaceful, serene, kind of maybe a thing of connection. Wouldn't it be awesome if we could move right now and we could go sit on the picnic and finish eating and talking? Yeah? That's what I do with my classes all the time because it's good for me too. All right. So how many would say this would be a positive experience? Raise your hand. Okay, 3. Good. You're with me. All right. So now let's keep doing more science. How about this?
Dollar Tree. Love the mall.
How many like this spot? Okay, 1. Why? You like it? Ah,
The Dollar Tree.
because we got to go shopping, right? How about if you had to walk in here maybe in August at 3 o'clock? Heat stroke. So let's have the assumption that we're all people, right? But we drive all these things, cars. Where do we walk? If you think about it, we really make carscapes, not peoplescapes, for the most places. And this is a huge thing of commerce, right? How do we get there? What else do you see or don't you see in this picture?
There's no trees.
Nature, no trees. So this is kind of like opposite to this, yeah? Now everything has its purpose, but this is kind of scary because this is more often than not what's happening all over the world in industrialized nations. This is anti kind of people in a way, even though it's made for people. Okay, all right, let's keep moving. So, did you miss the green or the vegetation or the nature in that last picture? Maybe a little bit. So again, how about if this was actually in a parking lot, maybe in Eva or Kona in August about 1:42. Could be even 1:44, give or take. It'd be super hot, right? So why do we design places like this? Why is this happening? Why do policymakers allow places like that parking lot to happen? Very interesting. So let's talk about a few scientific studies to see what has been done to try to help policymakers and designers not to do that anymore. So let's talk about human responses to vegetation. So humans actually have an intrinsic connection to nature, as E.O. Wilson said. In fact, perceiving and collecting vital information from the landscape is really part of our DNA. It's part of our social DNA as well. And researchers have been showing that. Researchers has also been showing that potted plants can remove VOCs or volatile organic compounds, nasty things that we see from the carpeting here, the shading, the walls. And they also help remove particle matter, or they help remove dust. Plants also help increase relative humidity. And of course, Hawaii, right? We have a little bit of high humidity, which is very pleasant for most of us, as opposed to maybe like Death Valley. And there's other stuff that show that there's actually powerful aesthetic and emotional values associated with plants and people's interaction with plants, like stress and aggression reduction, increased productivity. There's been studies, that show that plants in offices help workers 15% to 20% more productive when there's plants around their workspaces. And then there's fast recovery time from illnesses. There's many, many research, but again, I have to be done, Judy said by 3, so I can't go through all of them. And then people actually prefer and are physiologically affected by plants. I'm going to talk about a few brief studies to kind of explain this to you. So one very, very famous study in the early 80s looked at comparing recovery rates of gallbladder surgery patients. And what they did in this hospital, they had these gallbladder patients and they brought them up and divided them into 2 groups. And for the most part, they had the same kind of ages, symptoms, recovery, everything. And then what the nurses did, they took reports of, how much pain meds they did, how much they were whiners, how fast they left, how nice they were to them, all these kind of things they took the two groups. And what they found is that a view of nature through a hospital room had positive effects. So one group had a view of trees and nature out their windows. And then the other group had a fantastic view of a perfectly maintained brick wall. So they had a cool brick wall, no graffiti, and then the others had a view of nature, but there was more positive effects when the patients had a view of nature. In fact, the patients required less pain medication, they had fewer complaints, and they left the hospital sooner than the people that had the block wall. That's significant. What do you think would be the bottom line for the people? Two bottom lines for the people that left earlier.
Save money.
They saved money because their bills are smaller. They weren't there that long. They had less pain medication, so their pharmacy bill was a lot smaller. And they were happy because they were out of there. The hospital loved it because they could turn over the room a lot faster. So it's kind of a win-win. In fact, this study started all the healing gardens and hospital gardens that are now all over the world. Extremely powerful study. The powerful plants in healing. So basically what this research showed is that when people looked at a block wall, even though how great that is, and I like to do masonry, people weren't so cool. They weren't so happy. But when you looked at vegetation, they were jumping for joy. Interesting, very powerful message, but very simple. Yeah? Okay, so plants have the power to heal. One study. So let's look at some studies in academia. So there's these researchers that wanted to look at increased demand for attention and fatigue, what happens? At a certain point, has anyone ever been, I always get this confused, has anyone ever been stressed before? What do you do when you get super, super stressed? How do you become de-stressed? Okay, drink, run, some other recreational things. So these researchers wanted to look at college students, and if anyone's ever been a college student or everyone been in the classroom, I hear it can be stressful sometimes. And so they wanted to see, well, what happens? So they wanted to know if a view of nature from a dorm room versus like a parking lot or something else had an effect on students. And so they ran different subjective and objective tests on them. Broke kids up in different things. And what it showed that students with a window of views of nature and without were given these tests, and turned out that students with a view of nature were better able to direct attention than those with no nature. In fact, the researchers extrapolated out that the students actually were doing better in school, and they were able to graduate either earlier on time, if you extrapolate this all out, when they had a view of nature out their dorm rooms instead of another wall, another dorm, or a parking lot. Very, very powerful. Very simple study. Again, just trying to show the power of nature and the nature in connection with humans. All right. So, how many people like to go shopping? How many people like to eat? Okay, a little connection there. So when I was a student, I loved to eat, and I loved to go shopping because if you shop, and there's this word I learned, procrastination. Anyone ever heard that? But that was a healthy procrastination because I had to go buy stuff. So I would go to the store and I'd watch people pick out fruits and vegetables. Anyone ever pick out a fruit and vegetable? How many take it and sniff it? Or feel it? Squeeze it? If you taste it, I don't want to know because that's supposed to do that. Anyway, so I would watch people. And I was fascinated why people did this. And I found out I do the same thing. I want to make sure that orange is really orange. I want to make sure it's a really ripe pineapple or papaya. People are like thumping on melons. I haven't learned that quite yet, though, but I know they do it. And then I thought, well, if we do this to food, how about landscapes? How to respond to landscapes and how to respond to color of landscapes. There's been a little bit of study about flower colors, but not about color in the whole landscape. So I wanted to look at people's emotional and physiological responses to color in the landscape. So what I did is I had trees that were computer generated, and they were 52 different colors. So the first question, people say, well, why did you have computer trees? Why don't you just do real trees? And that's what I was going to do. I was going to color real trees. But they said, no, that people will freak out. They think you're doing GMO, nasty Frankenstein stuff. And research actually showed, if you show people kind of pictorials, they're able to mentally put everything together, and they accept it as being real. I go, wow, that doesn't make sense. But that's what the research showed. So I had 52 different tree colors and had a specific tree shape. And I asked people what they liked and what they didn't like. And then I took a subset of those and the really powerful colors, which were 11, that consistently showed something positive or negative in people's preference, what they liked, what they didn't like. And what it showed is that people liked kind of greens and reds, but they didn't like kind of browns and purples and stuff. And this was interesting because this kind of supported the previous 20 years of research. Why do you think people like the greens and reds?
It's normal.
It's normal. Why is it normal?
Because that's what's in nature.
How many people had some salad today? 2. All right, good. So it's a start. So when you pick salad, you kind of want green stuff, right? You don't like the yellow stuff? So it goes back to our evolutionary and survival. So why wouldn't they like brown and yellow trees? It's dead. It's dead or dying. I just asked them by looking at these pictures, didn't tell them if they were foliage, if they were colored, flowered, whatever. I just asked what they liked and what they didn't like. So then I thought, well, okay, research has always done preference ratings. As a researcher, preferences, you like it, don't like it, which is powerful. But then I met the researcher who did the hospital study. He said, if you want to make change in policy and in real design applications, you need to show physiological stuff. You need to show medical measures. So I said, okay. So I found a person on the campus who did media research with physiological data. So what I did is I took people's emotional and physiological responses of the tree colors. I wanted to test them. So now people were showed 18 colors of those 52 colors, kind of broadening it out to see how they physiologically responded to things. And so this was recording physiological measures. So what physiological measures or responses are, it measures the reaction or the action potential in muscles. So before you sit there and you kind of smile or frown, there's neurons that are firing. Except if you have gas, that's a different story, but I don't want to know about that. But when you're processing things cognitively, there's a reaction time that happens in milliseconds. And the muscles fire first before we actually see that happening. So I wanted to test that. It was a kind of a cool thing to kind of look at. So what I did a 2-part study. First thing is that people looked at these trees, and I, in real time, recorded their physiological responses. And I looked at heart rate, which is the indicator of attention. So heart rate is the indicator of attention. Next, I did EEG, or alpha brain waves. And this is the activity of you're kind of focused, you're kind of chilled out, but you're awake. You're not kind of like snoozing or drooling. And then I'm also able to look at EMG. This is facial reactions. And what we call this is positive and negative valence. This is, again, when you smile and frown, positive and negative. And this is all while people are like looking at these trees. Then I looked at GSR, which is a form of arousal or calmness. Like when you get kind of sweaty or kind of nervous, this technique can measure this. And then the second part of the test is that we showed these pictures, and then people could talk story. We want to say, well, what did you like? What didn't you like? And then want to find out, where'd you go to school? How old are you? All that kind of stuff. So 2-part study looking at those trees. And this is actually a real picture of what these physiological readings look like. All right, so this is what it looks like. And actually, I can do this now in my lab. So people come in, they sit down, and notice she's smiling. She's not screaming, she's smiling. And we hook up all these kind of sensors, but they're actually electrodes. And we do all these safety things, and they're on their fingers, legs, and we hook them everywhere. And this is kind of like a big biofeedback machine. And it measures precognitive, before people think, how they react to something. And in this case, it was those colored trees. And so what we found, just in skin conductance, again, skin conductance is how excited or how calm you are, is that all the tree colors were very calming to people. This was the millivolts of how much their responses registered through the machine. But yellow was almost arousing. Yellow was almost arousing. Why do you think yellow was almost arousing? Real question. Why do you think yellow, the color yellow of those trees, were physiologically arousing to people?
Yellow, blue, make green.
Yellow, blue, and green? Oh, I have heard that. That's right. And blue actually is the #1 color for people. So why else? Who can add to that? Who can add the why? Okay, it's bright. Kind of bright like the sun. We need the sun. What else? Good. Who can add to that? How many have had a lemon or something? Or how many of you ever seen a yellow flower? It turns out that in our evolution, there's a theory that started in East African savannas. And in that area, a lot of the fruit and the flowers are yellow. Oh, I get goosebumps. This was like so cool. All right, so the big take-home message is that all the tree colors were very relaxing for people. But yellow was kind of a little bit arousing. These are not flowers, these are trees. Okay, any questions? Going once, going twice? Okay, let's keep going. All right, how are we doing? Need a stretch? Everyone get up, stretch. Get up, 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 up. So you can do your favorite yoga stretch, everybody deep, back. Get that cupcake kind of moving and grooving in there. Prime rib settling. Okay, so let's keep moving and grooving here. So, can someone read that word to me? Math. Let's have fun, math. Let's have some smiles, math. Math makes the world go round. Math is money. So math, we think about algebra, addition. I thought it said addiction, but it could be addiction. Multiplication, geometry. So math is pretty important, yeah? How many have had math in school? How many were awake when you had math in school? Okay, so what about math and children? So you don't have to show a hand, but how many of you were kind of like this in school? Okay, I'll raise my hand because I was so like this in school. And then how many of you were like this in school with math? Like, woohoo! Can't wait, man, let's fire it up. I watch my son and my wife now, and they do math at the table, and I go out and I prune. I'm out. And then actually last night he had a problem, and he was wrong, but he couldn't admit he was wrong. Doesn't come from my side of the family, of course. And so I showed him how I did it, and I was right, because that really upset him. He's 9. And so later on he came out and explained that he was actually wrong. But I was showing him a real simple way how to do math, and I felt so proud of myself because I could do 3rd grade math. Woo! Good night last night for me. Okay, so math is interesting. Well, I want to do a study to see how math could be affected by plants in classrooms. So we did a pilot study, and I developed this way to investigate if indoor potted plants in a high school math classroom could affect academic test scores and also affect behavior. Kind of a simple assumption what to do. So I conducted this in Hawaiian High School, and it was located in a socioeconomic disadvantaged area. I can't really tell you where, but we have a lot of those throughout the country, so it's nothing kind of new. And generally, I want to look at math classes because, at least in my experience, math is not that great. And also, my best friend from college was a math teacher, so I had it in. All right, so looking at math, because usually it's challenging for a lot of people, and again, I had it in with a math teacher. And so what we wanted to do is that we wanted to look at students' standardized test math scores, and then we wanted to look at disciplinary reports along with student and teacher self-reports were measured. Yeah? Okay, how did I do this? Anybody want to know? We got time, not 3 o'clock yet? Oh, we're good. Okay, all right. So the data was collected a semester before plants were in the classroom. Data was collected a semester during the plants were in the classroom. And then finally, a semester after. So we had 3 semesters. We had 5 classrooms that we looked at. And the classrooms were about 25 to 25 feet, and they were physically the same, except one had no windows. One had no windows. There's actually studies about windowless environments on plants, which is super cool. But again, I got to be done by 3, Judy said, so I can't go into that now. And so we had students in each classroom were mixed standings. They were freshmen, seniors, pre-algebra, trigonometry. There's about 60 students totally in the study. So we placed the plants in the same location in each of the rooms, focusing on where their attention would be, either at the teacher's desk or at the study station, someplace where they would actually physically be, or maybe where they would daydream too. And then we used Janet Craig, Dracaenas, we used Marginata, Colorama, and Anthuriums. Oh, Anthuriums. See, we're all connected here at CTAHR. So I'll go over to Tessie. So I actually put Anthuriums in the classrooms. Woo! And actually, Eric was a really big supporter of this study. All right, so then we took students from the ag science class, and they were trained to care for the plants weekly. Okay, if I forget, remind me, because there's a story about the ag students, yeah? Can you remind me about the student ag story? All right, so here we go. So this is the pre-plant classrooms. So this is what the classrooms look like. Many of you might know these classrooms yourself or similar. So, you know, cool classrooms, pretty awesome. But again, plants are super cool. That's why we're here today. So we had our team of scientists. I went in and we started placing plants, you know, all over where they would be. Now I want you to look very closely, because this person is setting up the plants, super duper highly big smile, because they're touched with plants. You think about the plants you touched this morning. If I could hook you guys up, your blood pressure would probably be down, your synaptics would be up. Just by looking at those little tissue culture plants, it affected you. This really affected just us working there. So this was a fun day putting the plants in. All right, so we put all the plants in, and again, standard kind of classroom. I think this was a teacher's desk, work study. So we kind of focus on all the plants and areas where students would be in all of the 5 classrooms. And this is what it looked like. Okay, if you want, you can go, ooh, now. Yes, it was pretty exciting. All right, so standard classroom of the 5, and then this is what it kind of looked like with all the plants, kind of spread things around. So what did we find out? Here we go. So we looked at the difference in the number of discipline reports. And if you look at here, this is the spring before the plants were there. It wasn't too sparky. Pretty high number here. This is the high number we're looking at. But then, with the plants in that semester, huge drop. That's a huge drop in the discipline reports. This is huge, just in and of itself. And then there was kind of like a latent reaction that, well, not so much, but still, there was less reports after this. There's been recreation studies. How many have ever taken a vacation? Okay, how many want to take a vacation? How many have ever gone fishing or gone on a fishing trip? They did a study on people that would plan a vacation and plan fishing trips, that you kind of get excited before you're going, you're planning, and then you're going and have a great time. But then when you come back, there's actually this time that vacation stimulates you. You're still restored. And we're seeing the same thing, that there was this latent response when the plants were gone, that kids were still focused or remembered or still were affected by these plants. So the second thing we looked at is a difference in test scores. And we saw that, again, not so much a great number before the plants were there. But then the test scores, they actually improved. Statistically, it was kind of borderline, but there was definitely a trend. And then again, afterwards, still, it was still pretty positive. So now the plants kind of reduced disciplinary reports, and the plants actually started to affect test scores. Of those 5 classrooms, of those 3 species of plants that were put throughout those classrooms. That didn't make sense, but anyway, you get my point. Any questions, comments? Yes?
Was it like the same class, or like the same group of kids all 3 years? Because like, how did you rule out the kids just like?
Yeah, they were the same group of kids. They're same group of kids in the 3 semesters they were followed. Yes, good question. Yes. Any other questions? Yes. There were 60 of them total in this study. Yeah, only 60. And it was only in the math classes. Okay, so what we found out is that, 1, students scored higher on standardized testing, and they had less disciplinary problems when the plants were present in the classrooms. That's like super exciting. Next, what we found out is that students reported that there was many things. Okay, now this is in Hawaii, so from Pennsylvania, right? Okay, but this is Hawaii. You look outside, pretty cool out there, right? But a classroom is a classroom, math is math. So what these students said is that they had lower levels of stress in Hawaii in the math class with the plants there. Then they also said that they felt more comfortable. This is Hawaii. What's the scoop with downtown Detroit or LA? This could be huge for places like that. Then they said they felt the air was fresher, and they said that they were able to concentrate for longer periods when the plants were in the classroom than not. This is super simple but super powerful. So the results indicate that plants in the classroom improved many different things. In fact, students' well-being was really high, and they improved academic achievements. Okay, going back to the ag students. Well, we found out that the ag students were there, they were like scientists, right? Usually ag students are not like the cream of the crop. They're not really thought of really highly in most high schools, especially in my high school. Their status within school elevated. Big time elevated, the teacher said. They had more pride. They were there doing science, and they felt better. It was amazing that we didn't even think about this. But by giving them a kind of a status, they learned a whole different set of tools. They were now reviewed by the other classes. Another unfortunate thing was there was a big beef between the history department, English department, another department, and the math department. The teachers were super upset, and they were actually pissed they didn't have plans. Why did math get plans and they didn't have plans? And it was like a serious thing. I had to go and talk to the teachers because it was just, study, la, 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 la. But it was amazing that the teachers were so upset in the other disciplines that they didn't have plans in their classroom. That made me feel super cool after I got out of the classroom, actually. All right, so what else happened? Oh, the decreased discipline problems. That's huge in any kind of high school or junior high setting. So the data also reviewed a couple other things. One, that indoor plants within classrooms may be really an effective tool to think about incorporating. Yeah? And also, looking at reducing student negative behaviors is also huge, just by having a few plants in the classroom. And then creating responsibility within the students, again, the ag students that we saw was pretty cool. And then having students gain independence and the status that they normally didn't have by just being these science plant monitors. And then the teachers felt more refreshed, and they were less stressed. So teachers were digging it. Because again, they didn't have to worry about the bugs, or they didn't have to worry about watering. They just had to kind of say how they felt every week. And that was improved by having these plants in the classroom. And then, do you think this could be an indication of biophilia? Raise your hand if you think so. How many not so sure? How many still digesting the food? Okay. So it's interesting. So it could be an indication of biophilia, what we talked about with E.O. Wilson. And plants, they really are a part of us. And this is another test or testament that this is really a positive thing. And then in addition to that apple on the teacher's desk, maybe it really is cool to add some plants in the classroom. And then, of course, landscaping outside is a whole other story that I can't talk about because I have to be out of here by 3. So again, plants within the landscape, both indoor and outdoor, is very powerful. So here's actually a picture of the ag students, and they're all pretty happy. I think there's one person that wasn't quite sure yet. But this was pretty cool. Again, they all were excited to take this picture because they were a part of a group now. They were something very significant. So I would suggest that really plants are the foundation to so many things, but I think they're a foundation of helping our students learn and become happier, more productive individuals. So if you think about it, I talk about plants in the landscape. If you have plants in the landscape, you have that symbiotic relationship, you have that biophilic relationship that's very positive with plants and animals. And I think we can take that one step further by if we have plants in the classroom, we can increase that even more. So I think when we don't incorporate these, we don't think about them, then this is not a good thing, right? We want to kind of avoid this kind of situation. All right. So I'd like to thank these people, and especially Eric in the back. Thank you so much. It was definitely a team effort. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this point. Thank you for your time.